News from Parliament, where the Aviation Minister gave House members an update on the dispute over overflight fees. This as the country has so far secured more than $42 million in airspace fees for the current fiscal year, with the expectation that this figure will be higher based on the faster than expected recovery in air traffic movements. Altavis Munnings joins us in studio with the story. Good evening, Altavis.
Good evening, Makushla, and good evening, Bahamas. It was days after the 2022 Thanksgiving holiday when the Bahamas was advised by the International Air Transport Association's clearinghouse, that's where the bulk of U.S. airline payments are cleared, that American Airlines launched a formal protest on its $4.2 million in airspace charging scheme payments from June to November that year. This led to Bahamas Air Navigational Services Authority, better known as BANSA, issuing a formal response on December 8th, justifying the validity of the Bahamas' fee charging scheme and how it was considered to be consistent with International Civil Aviation Organization principles.
On December 15, 2022, the Bahamas was advised that having reviewed the position of American Airlines and the Bahamas, it concluded that a substantive dispute existed between the parties. Under the rules, therefore, the IAH notified that the $4.2 million in dispute would be held in escrow until the matter is resolved.
Recapping the chain of events, Tourism, Investments and Aviation Minister the Honorable Chester Cooper added that on December 15th, 2022, Air Transport Association of America members filed a joint complaint with the U.S. Department of Transportation against the Bahamas and a number of the Bahamas' air carriers into the U.S. Airlines for America asked that, unless the Bahamas ends the collection of what it characterized as unjust and discriminatory user charges, the authority, held by air carriers of the Bahamas to provide international air transportation to the United States, be curtailed or suspended or be subject to other countervailing measures. This resulted in the Department of Transportation issuing an order inviting interested parties to respond to that complaint within 21 calendar days.
I can report that on January 11, 2023, the Bahamas Comprehensive Response was filed, calling for the dismissal of the joint complaint on several key grounds. One, that the DOT, Department of Transportation, does not have jurisdiction, given that it can only rule on a case of discrimination under the ARA, and noting that the charges being levied by Airlines for America covered other structural elements of the fee scheme that went beyond the ARA. Two, that Airlines for America does not have standing to challenge the airspace charges. Three, that the DOT is not the proper forum for resolving the dispute. And four, the Bahamas overflight fees are consistent with the governing agreements and identical for all airlines using Bahamas airspace.
Once filing a surreply in court, the Bahamas reinforced its argument that Airlines for America must prove there is discrimination in the Bahamas fee and clearly articulate the argument that all airlines, including Bahamian air carriers, pay identical charges when flying over the Bahamian airspace.
We are pleased to note, Madam Speaker, that on February 21, 2023, the U.S. DOT issued an order denying the complaint against the Bahamas, indicating that it cannot conclude that the Bahamas fee structure constitutes unjustifiable or unreasonable discrimination. However, the DOT has expressed its intent to pursue its cost-based concerns under the terms established in the U.S.-Bahamas agreements, which the government agrees is the appropriate forum for these discussions and consultations.
The Aviation Minister also announced that the first formal consultations with the U.S. Department of Transportation on this matter is scheduled for mid-April. Reporting for the Bahamas tonight, I'm Altavis Munnings.